to all the crazy people on social media, basically calling her every name under the sun because she chose to play in Indiana. These are the same people that are like, oh, she'll never play in Indiana for obvious reasons. And she went and defended the Indiana fans and was like, talking about, she was basically like, talking positively about the fans that were interacting with her positively, and was responding to one of the crazy posts about her being like, I'm getting screenshots of things you were saying about me. Can you just stop?
DeWanna Bonner just shattered her 6-month Twitter silence, and she didn't return with a simple "I'm back" tweet. Instead, she unleashed a bombshell that's got the entire WNBA buzzing. Not only is she joining the Indiana Fever, but she's also turning the tables on a worn-out narrative. You know the one, that Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans are toxic? That storyline is officially over, thanks to one powerful tweet from Bonner.
This WNBA offseason told a lot of dumbass narratives, right? It really did. And I hope they're gone for good. And I hope we spend so much less time discussing nonsense. But I think we've seen it stamped out this offseason. And one of those narratives was people wouldn't want to go to the Fever because of the Fever fan base.
Now, you might be asking, isn't that the team everyone seems to love to despise? Well, Bonner isn't buying into that narrative. She just dropped a tweet that's sending shockwaves through the league. And believe me, it's touching on issues that go far beyond just the game of basketball.
It goes to show you that I think hopefully all that stuff has been put in the rear view. And of course, Bonner is a pro.
Imagine this, Bonner casually scrolling through her phone, likely with a steaming cup of coffee in hand, stumbles upon the usual noise. Critics are bashing her for signing with Indiana. Detractors claim no one would ever choose to play for the Fever. And those so-called experts are clinging to their tired narrative like it's the final slice of pizza at a party. But instead of brushing it off, Bonner had enough. She didn't merely respond. She dismantled that feeble storyline with the precision of one of her signature shot blocks.
Y'all, I don't get on here often because this app is insanely too much sometimes. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the love I've received so far. Deaf, not unnoticed. The love is real.
Her tweet was absolute fire. It wasn't just about defending herself. It was a full-throttle rally for Indiana Fever fans. In essence, Bonner declared, "You're loud, you're passionate, and you're real. That isn't toxic. That's what genuine fandom looks like." And she didn't stop there. She pulled back the curtain on the hypocrisy. How is it that when other fan bases show their passion, it's hailed as support, but when it comes to Indiana, it's painted in a different light? It just doesn't add up.
She's gone online for 2 times. One is to call out the crazy people attacking her right now because she joined the Fever.
And here's why it matters. Bonner isn't some rookie scrambling for attention. She's a champion, a bona fide legend on the court, and an unstoppable force when it comes to scoring. When she speaks, the entire league listens. This isn't merely a player airing grievances online. It's a respected leader calling out the absurdity. Having witnessed it all in the WNBA, she's unafraid to voice what everyone else has been thinking.
You know, Fever fans are probably starving for that. And I think seeing the validation of the players choosing their team.
But here's the twist. Her tweet wasn't solely aimed at the fans. Bonner put the entire league on alert, making it crystal clear that Indiana isn't just a team fighting to stay relevant. With Caitlin Clark leading the charge, the Fever are crafting something truly extraordinary, and Bonner is all in. She's not merely joining a team, she's stepping into a movement.
And it's funny because if you're seeing like DeWanna Bonner, if you're seeing like Natasha Howard, on social media, Natasha Howard's posts are getting 100 times more likes, and DeWanna Bonner's being reacted more positively probably than she ever has been in her career.
And get this, the reaction has been nothing short of phenomenal. Fans are rallying behind her, Fever supporters are louder than ever, and even players from rival teams are stepping up to show their support. The whole narrative has been completely overturned.
Be an olive branch to us all to focus on the basketball. But I did think it was worth sharing simply because I know a lot of those fans, the new fans, felt rejected and beaten down a lot. And I think this is symbolic.
Now all those critics who once insisted no one was eager to play for Indiana are scrambling to backtrack, acting as if they never said a word. Meanwhile, Bonner, Caitlin Clark, and the Fever are busy strategizing their next move. And trust me, what's coming is nothing short of legendary.
You know, no argument that the Fever are a great basketball destination. That Caitlin Clark is a great basketball.
Chances are you've caught wind of the so-called Indiana Fever fan controversy. But do you really know the full story? It all began when Alyssa Thomas, Bonner's wife, decided to stir the pot. She boldly claimed that Fever fans were so intimidating, players were shunning the team, as if they were avoiding a barren basketball wasteland.
In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. You know, we had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And yeah, there's no place for it, and we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media.
Here's the twist. Despite all the chatter, star players are eagerly lining up to join the Fever. DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, these aren't just role players, they're bona fide WNBA icons. When they saw those headlines labeling the fan base as toxic, their response was a resounding, "Count me in." Now, let's talk facts. The numbers speak for themselves. Fever fan engagement is skyrocketing. We're talking sold-out arenas, merchandise flying off the shelves, and social media buzzing like it's draft night every day. This fan base isn't toxic, it's downright electric. And let's not overlook the Caitlin Clark effect. This isn't just a player making ripples. She's a tidal force, turning casual observers into die-hard fans. The very team once dismissed as irrelevant is now the hottest ticket in town. It's like criticizing an entire library because one book had a torn page. It just doesn't add up.
The Fever fan base being painted with this broad brushstroke was always just stupid, really. There's no other word for it, because Caitlin Clark brought more fans to the league than it's ever seen. So many of them are Fever fans, and the new fans that come in outnumber the old fans that were already there. You don't want to tell those people they're unwelcome.
So what's really going on here? Are Fever fans as cruel as a few bitter voices claim? Not even close. Sure, every team has its share of misfits. That's just part of the game. But those few don't define the overall culture. The true spirit of this fan base is all about passion, and it's that very energy that's powering the Fever's ascent.
And a lot of fans, I think, felt unwelcome as a result of that, because when you look at every sport and every fan base, there are going to be bad apples. With every group of people, there are. And the larger that group becomes, of course, then the larger the small percentage of bad apples are. But if you've ever followed sports, you see people acting stupid online or even live at games.
Here's the bottom line. Why are top-tier players flocking to Indiana? It's straightforward. They see the vision. They recognize what's brewing in that front office. Perhaps it's the chance to win, the lucrative endorsements, or simply the understanding that Indiana Fever fans form the backbone of something extraordinary, not a problem. The reality is that this team is redefining the narrative. From dismantling outdated perceptions to building an electrifying culture fueled by passionate supporters, the Fever are on the rise. In the end, it's not just about basketball. It's about creating a legacy and proving that when you have vision and true fan support, you can turn any doubter into a believer.
Caitlin Clark, she declined an invitation to participate in a special challenge during NBA All-Star Weekend next month. That's what Shams reported on Wednesday. Now, Clark's representatives, they expressed her desire to have her first three-point contest be at the WNBA All-Star in Indianapolis this summer. Shanae, I'm not mad at it. What do you make of this decision?
Look, I not only respect it, I absolutely wholeheartedly support. Well, it's official, you guys. Caitlin Clark is not competing in the three-point contest at NBA All-Star.
What happens when the biggest star in women's basketball says no to the NBA? Caitlin Clark, a record-breaking force and trailblazer on the court, just did exactly that. In a move that's sparking controversy and shaking up sports media, Clark turned down an invitation to join the NBA's three-point contest at All-Star Weekend. Rather than stepping into the spotlight as the NBA's special attraction, she's making a bold statement about where true recognition belongs. Stay tuned as we dive into how this decision is flipping the script and what it means for the future of the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark knows how to use the word that many people struggle all their lives being able to use. Some of us never get it till we're old and just don't care no more. The word, take a guess. Take a guess.
Controversy, debate, and, of course, ESPN's outrage. Caitlin Clark, the beacon of the WNBA's future, has just declined an invitation to participate in the NBA's three-point contest at All-Star Weekend.
Well, it has just been confirmed from Shams that Caitlin Clark will not be competing in the NBA three-point contest. Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark will not participate in the NBA All-Star Special three-point shootout in San Francisco and wants her first three-point contest to be at WNBA All-Star in Indianapolis this summer. Her representatives at Excel Sports.
Rather than celebrating her choice, the sports media exploded into chaos. Some argue she's simply dodging the competition, while others believe she's boldly championing the WNBA. So what's the true story behind her decision, and why is ESPN so incensed? Stick around because we're unpacking every detail right now. All right, let's jump in. The Caitlin Clark saga has been dominating headlines nonstop. In case you haven't caught wind of it, Caitlin Clark, the undeniable superstar of women's basketball, recently declined an invitation to compete in the NBA's three-point contest during this year's All-Star Weekend. And wow, opinions are flying everywhere. From ESPN to NBA fans and WNBA supporters, everyone is weighing in as the debate continues to heat up.
The momentum that Caitlin Clark has this season, with her being close to being the face of basketball, both men's and women's this year, I just thought it was the perfect stage. And then obviously, you know, the possibility of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson teaming up once again back in Golden State and doing that home reunion thing, and then having Sabrina and Caitlin. To me, it just sounded like so much fun, and it would definitely bring a little spark to NBA All-Star that NBA All-Star unfortunately hasn't.
Let's be honest, Caitlin Clark is the biggest name in women's basketball right now. She's more than just a player, she's a phenomenon. Every time she steps onto the court, she shatters records, fills arenas, and pulls in huge TV audiences. So when she decided to pass on the NBA's invitation, it wasn't just a scheduling conflict, it was a powerful statement, one that clearly caught ESPN and many sports analysts off guard. So what prompted her to make this call? Is she intimidated by the competition? Did she miscalculate? Or is she strategically setting the stage for the future, making a power move that still has many scratching their heads?
Is another testament to where she is in the hierarchy of the sports food chain and, you know, the ladder of power and influence. Because Caitlin Clark is Steph Curry and LeBron James. Like, she's, you know, there's no difference. A great philosopher once said there's levels to this. She's on that.
Here's the reality about Caitlin Clark. She knows exactly what she's worth. She's not just some player thrilled to get an invite to a high-profile event. She understands that wherever she goes, the cameras roll, the money flows, and the fans rally. So when the opportunity to participate in an NBA event came along, she didn't jump at it like a rookie trying to prove herself. Instead, she made it clear, "Thanks, but I'll pass. I'll host my first three-point contest on my own terms, in my own league."
You see Caitlin Clark using her power to benefit the WNBA, saying, Not that she'd never do anything with the NBA, but that she's not going to do it this time because the first time should be with the WNBA in front of the Fever fans.
And that's exactly what's setting off a firestorm of reactions. For years, women's basketball players have been fighting tooth and nail for recognition, respect, and financial support. The WNBA has long been cast in the shadow of the NBA, and whenever a female athlete earns a smidgen of mainstream acclaim, there's this lingering expectation that she should be grateful for even the smallest scraps of attention from the men's league. But Caitlin Clark isn't subscribing to that narrative, she's rewriting it. She made it abundantly clear that she wants her inaugural three-point contest to take place at the WNBA All-Star Game, right in front of her hometown fans in Indiana. And let's be real, that's a savvy move. Why settle for being the NBA's special guest when she can be the headliner of her own show? Why help prop up the NBA's All-Star Weekend ratings when she can shine the spotlight on the WNBA instead? Of course, not everyone is on board with her decision. The moment she turned down the offer, sports analysts went into overdrive. ESPN pundits began to debate whether she was making a grave error, questioning her judgment, while the usual skeptics claimed she was merely dodging competition. Dodging competition? Come on. Caitlin Clark has never shied away from a challenge. She's been demolishing defenses and shattering records her entire career. If she really wanted to join the NBA's three-point contest, she'd be more than capable of holding her own. But that's precisely the point. She refused because she knows her worth, and she refuses to let others call the shots for her. Stephen A. Smith, as per usual, had a lot to say on the matter. For once, he actually backed Clark's decision, though not without throwing in some of his trademark commentary. He noted that last year's WNBA All-Star Game smashed records by drawing in 3.4 million viewers, while the NBA's All-Star Game struggled to hit numbers anywhere near its former glory. The NBA's All-Star Weekend has been losing its luster, no secret there, and it's obvious they were banking on Caitlin Clark to give them a ratings boost. Let's break that down for a moment. The NBA isn't exactly at its prime during All-Star Weekend. The dunk contest has lost its charm, and even the All-Star Game itself is treated more like a casual exhibition than a true contest. Viewership has been on a steady decline, and the overall energy just isn't what it used to be. So when Caitlin Clark enters the picture, a player who's been single-handedly driving TV ratings through the roof and filling arenas, it's clear the NBA saw a golden opportunity. And frankly, from their standpoint, it made total sense. Imagine the buzz. Caitlin Clark going head-to-head with the NBA's best in a three-point contest. The intrigue alone would pull in millions of viewers. But that's exactly why she declined. She recognized that she was being positioned merely as a ratings tool, and she wasn't about to let that happen. Let's not kid ourselves. If she had accepted, the aftermath would have been just as contentious, albeit for different reasons. A win might have been dismissed as merely a shooting contest, not genuine competition. A loss would have fueled claims that the WNBA just can't compare to the NBA. There was no scenario in which she could emerge unscathed in that setup. Instead, she delivered a bold message. The WNBA matters. She's not a novelty act or a side attraction for the NBA's All-Star Weekend. She's the star of her own league. This move might just be one of the most significant power plays we've seen from a women's basketball player in a long time. It's not about avoiding one contest. It's about transforming the narrative around the WNBA. For too long, critics have argued that women's sports depend on the men's leagues to survive, that without the NBA's support, the WNBA couldn't flourish. But Caitlin Clark is proving that theory wrong. She's driving ticket sales, setting new records, and making women's basketball a must-watch spectacle all on its own. Consider this. Just last year, the WNBA saw a surge in both viewership and merchandise sales. The Indiana Fever, the team Clark plays for, accounted for nearly half of the league's entire broadcast value. Half. That's a staggering figure, and it's all thanks to her influence. She's demonstrating that the WNBA doesn't need to rely on the NBA's leftovers to thrive. It can stand tall with its own stars, its own storylines, and its own dedicated fan base. That's why this decision is so monumental. She's setting a new standard. She's telling the next generation of female athletes, you don't have to latch onto the men's league for validation. You can be the main event in your own right, and the impact is already evident. What began as a decision over a three-point contest has blossomed into a full-blown conversation about the future of women's basketball. That's the magnitude of her influence. So yes, ESPN might be seething, the NBA might feel let down, and some fans might be left scratching their heads. But Caitlin Clark is in complete control of her narrative. She's playing the long game, building something far bigger than a single contest. And honestly, you have to respect that.
First person I can honestly say that looks like Steph Curry. Like, she's not guardable right now, and she can hit almost any shot from the outside.
Almost any.
How much of a power she is out there on the court. The cool part is the way that she plays and her range and the level of difficulty on her shots is obviously a very close comparison.
From long-range shots to lasting influence, Caitlin Clark isn't just setting records, she's shattering them. Surpassing even Steph Curry's iconic three-point average, she's reshaping the future of basketball. But what happens when Caitlin Clark crosses paths with Steph Curry's legacy?
Do you think Caitlin Clark could beat Steph Curry in a three-point contest?
That's tough. Shooters can have an off night. You just never know. Caitlin has no conscience where she pulls from.
Steph has no conscience where he pulls from.
Been doing it for a long time, so can never go against Steph. Steph has been doing it for a long time.
Recently, Caitlin Clark has solidified her place in basketball history, and it's not just because of her scoring ability, it's where she scores from. New stats show that Caitlin Clark now holds the record for the longest average three-point range, an incredible 28 feet.
I think the WNBA narrative right now is Caitlin Clark, and I think that's a good narrative, but it's also not the only narrative. Caitlin is an amazing generational talent, and she's going to do amazing things. You're the number one pick. People are going to go after.
This remarkable accomplishment not only surpasses the previous record held by NBA legend Steph Curry, but it also sets a new, higher standard for shooting excellence in basketball. By pushing the boundaries of what was once thought possible, Caitlin Clark has redefined the range at which players can score, inspiring future generations to aim even further.
Do I need to call you the female version of Steph Curry, or do I need to call Steph Curry the male version of Caitlin Clark?
I think I'll just be the female version of Steph.
At just 22 years old, Clark's achievement is far more than a statistical outlier. It's a reflection of her unmatched skill, court awareness, and unshakable confidence. As the all-time leading scorer in college basketball, regardless of gender, she has already left an indelible mark on the game. With her new record-breaking 28-foot average, Caitlin Clark has not just added a new statistic to her resume, she's fundamentally redefined what it means to be a sharpshooter in the modern era. To put her accomplishment into perspective, Steph Curry, widely considered the greatest shooter in basketball history, boasts a three-point range averaging around 27 feet. At the time, that seemed untouchable. Curry's range revolutionized the game, sparking an era of deep shooting and permanently changing the way basketball is played. But now, Caitlin Clark has pushed that boundary even further, raising the bar to new heights.
I love me some Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in the history of basketball.
However, Clark has taken that revolution even further, stretching the boundaries of possibility with an additional foot of range that makes her a constant threat the moment she crosses half court. This is no accident. Clark's shooting range is the result of years of dedicated training, an innate basketball IQ, and an unwavering competitive spirit. Her shooting form is a perfect balance of precision and power, enabling her to effortlessly launch shots from well beyond the arc. But what truly sets her apart is her fearlessness. Clark isn't afraid to take shots from distances most players wouldn't even think about. Whether it's a contested 3 in the final seconds of a game or a casual pull-up from 30 feet on the fast break, she makes what seems impossible look completely effortless.
Shout out to Caitlin Clark. She's a certified bucket. To quote Shaq, I was not familiar with her game. I respect her game. She's a fucking baller. She was pulling up like Steph Curry from deep. But I just got one question. Matt, do you think you can beat Caitlin Clark in one-on-one?
Absolutely not. Nobody here can.
I'm busting her ass. You wild. Shit. You wild, bro.
This record also speaks volumes about the evolution of women's basketball. Clark's success stands as a powerful testament to how the game has progressed, with athletes consistently pushing the limits of what's possible on the court. Her remarkable shooting range has drawn comparisons to Curry, but it has also established her as a trailblazer in her own right, showing that women's basketball is just as dynamic, innovative, and game-changing as the men's game.
I think Steph Curry made the WNBA watchable.
Caitlin Clark, baby.
The way that Caitlin Clark was playing was a very digestible form of basketball. But now this girl out of nowhere is playing like Steph, and it was still digestible.
Meanwhile, Clark has reached this milestone in an era where defenders are more focused than ever on limiting long-range threats. Opponents specifically game plan to neutralize her, yet she continues to excel, constantly finding ways to create space and sink one clutch shot after another from deep. Her 28-foot average isn't just a number, it's a declaration of dominance. As Caitlin Clark keeps breaking records and exceeding expectations, the basketball world is left to wonder just how much further she can push the boundaries of shooting.
Is there anybody in the NBA under the age of 30 that's a bigger name, bigger jaw, bigger star than Caitlin Clark?
For now, one thing is clear. Clark has not only surpassed Steph Curry's legendary mark, but has firmly established herself as one of the most transformative figures in basketball. Her 28-foot average three-point range is more than just a record, it's the foundation of a legacy in the making. Caitlin Clark isn't just redefining the game of basketball, she's reshaping its entire business model. The sharpshooting sensation, already celebrated for her historic three-point average that outpaces even Curry, is demonstrating that her influence extends far beyond the court.
I mean, honestly, $1,000 for a family of 4 to go to a WNBA game. That seems wild. It really does. The Clark effect.
Clark now represents an incredible 1/4 of all WNBA merchandise and ticket sales. This remarkable achievement highlights her power to attract fans, drive revenue, and become a true game changer for women's sports. Moreover, in a league that has long battled for visibility and equality, Clark has sparked an unprecedented wave of fan engagement. From jerseys bearing her name to arenas packed with fans chanting in her honor, Clark is more than just a player, she's become a movement.
Caitlin Clark, her style of play it's not just her individually as a person or what skin color she is. I think it's, more so about her style of play, her playing.
According to reports, her merchandise sales alone make up nearly 25% of the WNBA's total revenue in this category, an extraordinary figure that speaks to her unmatched popularity. Whether it's fans buying her iconic number 22 jersey or scooping up exclusive Caitlin Clark-themed collectibles, her appeal is undeniable. The same goes for ticket sales. Clark's games are an event, consistently attracting record-breaking crowds. Angel Reese reveals the real reason behind Caitlin Clark's move to Europe. Angel Reese shuts down rumors, says Caitlin Clark's exit is a financial move. Angel Reese couldn't resist weighing in on Caitlin Clark's new European contract. Instead of letting it slide, she stepped in to set the record straight.
What the is that headline all about?
Yeah.
She is the worst fucking basketball player.
In the WNBA, this is pretty unprecedented. Someone so set on stirring the pot. Reese, still tangled up in her own steroid controversy, took a jab at Clark, suggesting players are just in it for the money and using racial issues to gain sympathy.
People talk about Caitlyn getting hate, but someone sat down and spent hours putting together an 8-minute video with interlude clips all to trash Angel. Why?
It's obvious Reese is targeting Clark here. The surprising part is that Caitlyn has never said anything negative about Reese or any other black player. But today, I can't help but feel that some people don't really deserve the silent treatment.
Blah, blah, blah. From Angel Reese.
It's pretty clear that Caitlyn Clark heading to Europe isn't just about exploring a new scene or picking up a different paycheck. It's more about escaping the toxic circus the WNBA has turned into. On the surface, the WNBA might seem like the perfect fit for a player like her, someone born to dominate. But in reality, it was becoming anything but ideal. Instead of just focusing on her game, she was constantly dodging scandals and skeptical looks like it was all part of the game plan.
Entitled players in the WNBA just can't seem to understand is, you get what you put in, and right now, you are getting exactly what you deserve.
And why? Because she chose to stay quiet while others tried to paint her as some kind of villain. Some of her own fellow athletes, along with a few media voices, went as far as to label her a racist. Honestly, where do they come up with this stuff? But Clark, always level-headed, didn't take the bait. She didn't waste her time responding to these absurd accusations. She just stayed focused on what really matters, basketball. Yet the drama surrounding her only kept growing, like a bad reality show storyline.
So I think it's really just the fans, her fans, the Iowa fans, now the Indiana fans.
Then Alyssa Thomas, clearly not interested in keeping the peace, decided to stir things up even more. She publicly blamed Clark for racist comments made by her fans. Yes, you read that correctly. Thomas somehow figured that Clark should be responsible for the words of random people in the stands.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
Ridiculous, right? This wasn't even about anything Clark did or said. Nope, Thomas seemed more interested in redirecting attention away from her own struggles. She bundled up her frustrations, jealousy, and whatever else was going on inside, wrapped it in an accusation, and tossed it right at Clark.
And then she had a press conference where she cried and everybody's so mean to me. Well, she's continued the stupidity. I mean, she cheered on her teammate as she shoved Caitlyn Clark, knocked Caitlyn Clark in the head, and a bunch of other stupid stuff.
The thing is, Caitlyn didn't have to do anything wrong to end up as a target. The love she was getting from fans, her name popping up in every highlight reel and headline, that alone was enough to spark jealousy in the WNBA. And it wasn't just random trolls online, it was some of the very players she shared the court with. Instead of celebrating her success, a few just couldn't handle it. Is the WNBA racist? Some would say so, but let's discuss some facts and numbers first. By all means, this was the best year the WNBA has ever had. They set an all-time record for total television viewers, reaching 54 million people. They also set an all-time record for the number of broadcasts that hit at least 1 million viewers. The league saw its highest total attendance in more than 2 decades, with a massive 50% increase compared to last year. The All-Star Game broke new ground with a staggering 10 million fan votes, a more than 500% increase from the previous year. The Indiana Fever, the team Caitlyn Clark plays for, managed to set an all-time single-season attendance record for a WNBA team. Beyond that, the league saw a 350% year-over-year growth in subscriptions to their paid streaming service. Add to that more social media engagement, more sellout crowds, more news coverage, and more merchandise sales than ever before. It's the kind of season that WNBA executives likely never imagined was possible. Now, Given all these remarkable achievements, how much money do you think the WNBA made this year? How much revenue could such a groundbreaking season bring in? What kind of profit do you think they were able to achieve? Earlier in the year, there were reports suggesting that the WNBA's finances weren't looking great, and now that the final numbers are in, those estimates have proven to be pretty accurate. According to the New York Post, the WNBA lost $40 million this year. Yes, during its best season ever, the league still managed to operate at a loss of $40 million. They exceeded nearly every metric for growth and engagement, and yet failed to turn a profit. This isn't just a bad year financially, it's a pattern. The WNBA has never been profitable in its entire history, and at this point, it's difficult to see how that could ever change. It's a concept fundamentally at odds with reality, because the majority of Americans simply aren't interested in watching women's basketball. Even during a record-breaking year like this one, the numbers show that interest still isn't enough to sustain the league financially. This backdrop makes Caitlin Clark's recent interview with Time magazine particularly interesting. Time, which still exists, recently named Clark their Athlete of the Year and featured her on the cover. In the article, Clark made a statement that's simultaneously revealing and controversial. Here's the part that stands out, directly from Time magazine. "I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege," says Clark. A lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has kind of been built on them. The more we can appreciate that, highlight that, talk about that, and then continue to have brands and companies invest in those players that have made this league incredible, I think it's very important. I have to continue to try to change that. The more we can elevate black women, that's going to be a beautiful thing. There are two things happening here. First, Clark is crediting black women with building the WNBA. Without them, she argues, the league wouldn't exist. While this might be intended as a compliment, it's a bit like praising someone for founding a business that consistently loses millions of dollars. However, even this claim isn't entirely accurate. The WNBA was built and is still financially sustained by the NBA. Without the NBA's funding and support, the WNBA wouldn't exist at all. She goes further to say that black women deserve to be elevated and celebrated, which makes it clear why she's saying this. She's protecting her endorsements and her status in the WNBA by endorsing a narrative that aligns with modern progressive ideals. What's interesting is that Clark's words come after and during a season in which she faced relentless abuse on the court. Whether it was being knocked over, poked in the eye, or shoulder-checked, Clark was repeatedly targeted, and in some cases even taunted afterward. Yet, despite this treatment, she's out here claiming that she has privilege. As a white woman in the WNBA, her experience suggests anything but privilege. What she does have is undeniable talent. Clark set records as a rookie, including the most points, the most assists, and becoming the fastest player to reach 300 points. Her performance is the reason she's a standout, not her race. However, her willingness to embrace the narrative of privilege, even after the way she was treated on the court, raises questions about whether she's doing so out of conviction or necessity. The WNBA, for all its growth and engagement, remains a business with fundamental issues. Even in its best year, it couldn't come close to profitability. Clark's commentary highlights the league's reliance on all players, but doesn't address the underlying problem. The WNBA is asking for an audience that largely doesn't exist. The record-breaking engagement figures show progress, but they also show limits. A majority of Americans still aren't tuning in, even when the league reaches its peak. In the end, the WNBA's challenges go far beyond racial dynamics or privilege. The league's financial woes point to a deeper issue: its inability to convert interest into sustainable revenue. Caitlin Clark's remarks may spark conversations, but they don't change the reality that the WNBA is, at its core, a business struggling to justify its existence in the sports market.
It's that time. Harvest.
You guys, everyone wants me to cry today. No way.
Have you ever witnessed a basketball star tear up over someone else's triumph? Well, Asia Wilson just did. The WNBA champion was seen in tears, but not for the reasons you'd expect. It's all in response to Caitlin Clark's emotional jersey retirement announcement.
I was like in tears, y'all.
You might be asking, what's all the fuss about? Don't players have their jerseys retired all the time? Well, not like this. Caitlin Clark's retirement ceremony is already setting records before it's even happened. Meanwhile, Asia Wilson's fans are crying foul, suggesting Iowa orchestrated this to steal the spotlight. But what spotlight? Iowa likely didn't even know when South Carolina planned Wilson's ceremony, especially since she graduated nearly a decade ago. We've got the facts, the timeline, and fan reactions that tell a different story. Let's break down why Wilson's tears are flowing and how Clark is once again changing the game for women's basketball. February 2nd, 2025. Don't forget that date, because it's about to become legendary in women's basketball. 2 players, 2 jersey retirements, but only one is stealing the spotlight like a supernova. Caitlin Clark and Asia Wilson, both revolutionizing women's basketball in their own ways, are set to have their jerseys retired on the same day. But that's where the comparison ends. Clark's ceremony at Iowa is generating a buzz that's completely overshadowing Wilson's South Carolina event.
Iowa taking on USC and Juju Watkins. Nationally televised game, I believe. February 2nd, 2-2, so it's 22. Everything about it lines up.
Let's talk numbers because they're crazy. The cheapest ticket to see Clark's jersey rise to the rafters is over $700, which is the most expensive ticket in women's basketball history. For some perspective, this price tag is even steeper than the cheapest ticket to an NBA Finals game. And if you're aiming for the best seats in the house, you'd better have a thick wallet, with tickets going for over $8,000. Meanwhile, you can catch a seat at Wilson's ceremony for just $25. No, that's not a typo. We're talking about a price difference more than 28 times higher for Clark's event.
But that is a supply and demand thing, especially in today's day and age where there's no such thing as a sellout, right? Where you can go to any event you want as long as you're willing to pay for it because of the secondary ticket market.
Social media is blowing up with reactions. This isn't just about ticket prices. It's a game-changing moment for women's basketball. The demand we're seeing now was unimaginable just a few years ago. Clark's final home game shattered records with tickets reaching $450. But now that feels like pocket change compared to her retirement ceremony. What's unfolding here is Clark reshaping the entire landscape of women's basketball. She's not just rewriting the record books on the court, she's breaking barriers off it. Clark has become a cultural icon, drawing in fans who might have never tuned into a women's basketball game before.
I'm leading scorer in women's college basketball.
But wait, there's more. This story is far from over. What does Wilson and her team have to say about this, you may ask?
One of the sentiments that was expressed was, oh, it's the same day as Asia Wilson's. How could you do it? First of all, I remember them announcing Asia Wilson was getting her jersey retired, but I didn't remember the date or anything. When the Clark news broke, I didn't think about Asia Wilson. And again, as is the case with Caitlin Clark, this only is going to bring more attention to A'ja Wilson's jersey retirement.
As ticket prices for Clark's ceremony soared, another kind of inflation was taking over: online outrage. A'ja Wilson's fans aren't just upset, they're convinced a conspiracy is at play. But what if the real story is even more explosive than they think? The social media storm ignited with Wilson's supporters crying foul over the timing of Clark's jersey retirement. One fan didn't hold back, tweeting, "Why would y'all retire her jersey on the same day as A'ja Wilson? Are y'all stupid?" This sentiment echoed across social media, with Wilson's fan base feeling like their star was being overshadowed by the Clark phenomenon. But here's where it gets interesting. The timeline of these announcements tells a different story. Iowa didn't just pull Clark's jersey retirement out of thin air. They revealed their plans back on April 11th, 2024, right after the NCAA championship game.
And yes, Clark did get a standing ovation when Iowa's athletics director announced that the university will retire her number 22
that number
jersey.
holds a lot of weight, far beyond my name, and I guess I'm just really grateful, and it'll be a special day when that happens for sure. Thank you. It's been very special, and this place will always be home to me.
South Carolina didn't unveil their plans for Wilson's jersey retirement until October 2024, 6 months later, folks. Wilson's fans are saying they're not Clark fans, so why should they care about Iowa stealing the spotlight with their announcement? Why can't both players be honored on the same day?
First of all, there's nothing wrong with two schools retiring respective jerseys on the same day. But secondly, if you wanted the focus to be on A'ja Wilson, she'll probably get more attention as the second, most recognized jersey retirement of that day than she would have if she had the stage all to herself on that.
So why are Wilson's fans so certain that Iowa is trying to steal South Carolina's thunder? It all boils down to the meteoric rise of Clark's popularity. Iowa's athletic director, Beth Gutz, put it bluntly: Clark's accomplishments have made a lasting impact on the university and on women's basketball. They weren't responding to Wilson's announcement. They were celebrating their own superstar. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Why did it take South Carolina so long to honor Wilson? One fan pointed out the obvious. Why did it take a decade for South Carolina to retire A'ja's number? How is that Iowa's problem? It's a fair question. Wilson graduated in 2018, yet it's taken until 2025 for her alma mater to retire her jersey. That's not on Iowa, that's on South Carolina.
And South Carolina waited years and years to retire A'ja's jersey.
The conspiracy theories are running wild, with some of Wilson's supporters convinced that Iowa deliberately picked this date to overshadow A'ja's moment. But let's think this through. Iowa chose a date that aligns with a high-profile game against USC, featuring rising star Juju Watkins, which was already set to be nationally televised. Plus, Clark's jersey has been hanging in Carver Hawkeye Arena for months. Everyone knew it was coming. How could Iowa possibly know when A'ja's retirement ceremony was planned? No one even knew about it until Clark made her announcement. This isn't about stealing anyone's spotlight. It's about maximizing exposure for women's basketball as a whole.
And then there was, Iowa is rushing this. They're rushing, or everything is rushed with Caitlin Clark. No, she just did things faster and garnered more attention and more notoriety and celebrity and celebration and popularity.
Here's what's hilarious. Some fans are actually asking for Wilson to move her date. One tweet put it bluntly: tell A'ja to move her date. Then the face of the WNBA is retiring hers. Show some respect. It's a stark reminder of how quickly the landscape of women's basketball is evolving. So what's really happening here? Is this about disrespect? Or is it simply a changing of the guard in women's basketball? The facts don't back up the conspiracy theories. Iowa's plans were in place long before Wilson's announcement, and they're just capitalizing on Clark's massive popularity. But here's the twist. There might be more to A'ja's reaction than just the jersey retirement itself. Is this truly about the ceremony, or could it be a deeper feeling of jealousy?
The reality is that, as far from a marketing perspective, Caitlin Clark is worth more than almost any pro basketball player in the world. If we're like purely talking about giving the money for endorsement deals.
Today, we're diving into the real story behind Caitlin Clark's wealth. Her WNBA salary? Just the tip of the iceberg. Discover how she's cashing in big with speaking gigs that outpace her on-court earnings. The game-changing impact of her endorsements with State Farm and Wilson, and why her Nike deal could spark some serious drama. Let's break it all down.
Which was mental. Which was absolutely mental.
Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why Caitlin Clark is poised to become the next powerhouse in sports marketing, and why some top brands might be kicking themselves for not jumping on board sooner.
Higher than the NBA. So I was like, oh, what's she gonna get paid? Because finally, you can get a real paycheck. And then I saw it and I was like, this can't be right. Because this is what it is. In the first year, Caitlin Clark will earn $76,535.
Can you believe that Caitlin Clark, the basketball sensation electrifying the courts, is set to earn a mere $76,535 in her rookie WNBA season? That's less than many entry-level office positions. When compared to NBA salaries, the disparity is glaring, leading many to argue that players like Clark are being undervalued by the league. However, this modest salary doesn't tell the whole story. Let's explore why Clark isn't losing sleep over her WNBA paycheck. While $70,000 might not scream superstar salary, it's actually just the beginning of Caitlin Clark's financial story. Here's the twist. The WNBA isn't just a paycheck, it's her secret weapon. The league offers something far more valuable than money: visibility. Think about it. Every time Clark steps onto the court, millions tune in. Her games dominate national broadcasts. Her highlight reels flood social media, and her name is on everyone's radar. This kind of exposure is a goldmine for marketing opportunities, turning her platform into a multi-million-dollar springboard.
Like, whatever really happens with Caitlin Clark, I would say her big thing is to be ready for the WNBA season. And people are like, why? She's only making $70,000 in the WNBA. What is the point of her worrying about that league rather than trying to push for other leagues and other ways of making more money? Because the WNBA is what's getting the most eyes.
Think about it. When Caitlin Clark sinks a deep three-pointer or threads an impossible pass, you're witnessing more than just incredible basketball. You're watching a brand come to life. Every crossover, every jaw-dropping assist, every buzzer beater isn't just a highlight. It's another opportunity for Clark to show the world her magic. And trust me, the world is paying attention. So, how is Clark turning all this visibility into cash? That's where it gets really exciting. Her modest WNBA salary is just the beginning, opening the floodgates to a slew of opportunities off the court. We're talking about endorsement deals, speaking gigs, and partnerships that could eclipse her league earnings many times over. And then there's the game changer, the Unrivaled League.
And it has also been reported that Unrivaled 3-on-3 League offered Caitlin Clark significant equity in the league and a salary that is over $1 million. So this is the first time that we've heard of any money being thrown at her. We've heard that it would be a major deal. It would be a similar setup as to what Messi got.
You've probably heard the buzz. Some people are saying Clark should ditch the WNBA and join Unrivaled, where she could be raking in millions from the start. But here's the kicker. Clark turned it down. Clark's playing the long game here. Sure, Unrivaled might offer a fatter paycheck right out of the gate, but the WNBA provides something Unrivaled can't touch yet: a proven platform with a loyal fan base and major media deals that guarantee her visibility on a national scale. So, Next time someone complains about Caitlin Clark's $70,000 WNBA salary, remember this: it's just the tip of the iceberg. Clark isn't just dominating the court, she's rewriting the playbook on how athletes build their brands. And trust me, this is only the beginning of what she's capable of. Clark's most valuable skill might not even be her basketball prowess, it's her ability to talk. But we're not talking about post-game interviews. No, Clark is raking in 6 figures for speaking engagements that take less time than a single quarter of basketball.
I think she's either one, if she shows up to somewhere, you're probably paying her $2,000 to $3,000 or $200,000 to $300,000, or it's free. I think she probably does a lot of things for free. Like, that would be my prediction, is that if she wants to be somewhere and she just wants to help out, she'll do quite a few things for free. But if she's not doing it for free, I would say her cost is crazy high.
You heard that right. Caitlin Clark is absolutely dominating on stage 2. Her speaking engagements are becoming the stuff of legend, and the numbers are jaw-dropping. Let's break it down. Clark's virtual speaking fee kicks off at $100,000 for just 30 minutes of her time. In less time than it takes to watch half an episode of a sitcom, she's earning more than most people make in an entire year. And for in-person appearances, companies are shelling out anywhere between $200,000 and $300,000. That's the price of a house in some parts of the country for just one appearance. Clark has already done at least 6 speaking engagements in the past year alone. Do the math, and you're looking at potential earnings in the millions. And it's not just in-person events. These gigs are happening online too, with big-name companies ready to pay top dollar for her words. But why are companies willing to shell out so much just to hear Clark speak? It all comes down to her star power. Every time Clark steps onto the WNBA court, her profile gets bigger. She's not just an athlete, she's a brand, an inspiration, a role model. Companies aren't just paying for her time, they're paying for the attention she commands, the excitement she stirs, and the influence she holds.